Planning a girls' trip with your BFFs can be an incredible adventure, but navigating the details can feel like deciphering a map. Our next guest is a lawyer, globetrotter, and mom of two who writes about law and tech. She'll help us read the fine print and keep our friendships in one piece. Let's welcome Ramona Morgan. Hello, Ramona. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Desiree. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes. Okay, so we're talking about a girls' trip traveling. So can you give us a quick look into some of the fantastic places you've been with friends, Ramona?
Sure, absolutely. So I've hiked the Great Wall of China.
Oh, wow.
I've hiked up to Machu Picchu in Peru. I've also tracked hippos in Burkina Faso. But out of all these sort of interesting and fairly exotic experiences, some of my most fun trips have been shoestring budget trips that I remember from way back in college. And what they all had in common was that we were building on a base of friendship and we kind of worked through any troubles if there might be. And so I'm really glad to have the opportunity to share some tips and some information on how other people might have a really great food.
Yes, especially since you can relate being such a traveler yourself. So you've talked about a shared
Absolutely.
vision. What things do friends need to do to get on the same page before taking off, before they even go on the trip?
I think you really have to have an understanding about what each person's expectations are. And that's going to be everything from when you pay for things, what the expectations are going to be about the level of luxury. And that can always be a little bit tricky. Some people are going to want to have Wagyu beef every night and champagne, and other people think, let me hold back and be a little bit more frugal. So you have to make sure that your expectations are the same, and just the way you picture your vacation. Like, is it relaxing to be in spa treatments, or do you really want to be doing those sort of active hikes? Those things are really important to get on the same page about.
Yes, I like that you pointed that out because everybody travels a little bit differently. So having those conversations in advance can kind of put everyone on the same page. Okay, let's talk about payments. How should friends handle splitting costs during a trip? That can be a little tricky sometimes.
So there are a couple of apps, and there's Splitify. There are a couple of other ones. They can be okay, but very often, if you go over a minimum of a couple of transactions, you start getting a lot of in-app charges. So I really think that one of the easiest things to do is just to go ahead, use Google Sheets, and that'll allow everyone to share one document, and you can create a whole lot of notes and a lot of information there. Sometimes the low-tech solutions can be the easiest.
Yes, we like ease and planning ahead. Okay, so the terms and conditions can be tiny and tedious to read, but it's important to know what's in the fine print, correct? Especially when we're making those reservations.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm as a lawyer, the terms and conditions, the fine prints, that's where I thrive. So I like reading that stuff. I know it's boring to a lot of people, but I usually go ahead and get stuck in. But one of the things that is really important one of the two things that are really important to understand are cancellations.
Mm.
So if one person is putting the full bill on their card, and a lot of times people do like to do that for points, they really have to be conscientious about when is the last date for cancellation. If you have a 30-day cancellation sort of cutoff, make sure everyone has a 35th day before travel on their calendar, and everyone gets together and talks about whether they're going to go forward or whether there are any big modifications. The other thing, of course, is, well, maybe not of course, but the other thing is insurance. If you do put it on one person's card, and you need to make sure that any insurance that comes with that applies to everyone who's traveling together, and so that everyone is covered. And then you need to make sure that your own health insurance is active when you're abroad. Those are the really key things that you'll find in the terms and conditions, and they're really important to pay attention to early on.
Yes, cancellation is huge, Ramona. I made that mistake. I thought I canceled my hotel, booked another hotel. I didn't, so I had to pay for both, and that was not fun. So you definitely want to make
Not
sure
fun.
you're reading the fine print like you mentioned. Okay, how can friends best communicate beforehand and resolve conflicts that might arise during the trip?
So, we can do as much as we can to prepare beforehand, but ultimately we're all imperfect people. And sometimes you don't realize you have a preference until you get there. So when I was on my Ghana trip, what happened was that I sort of assumed a certain level of amenities that weren't always available. And I had a friend who really liked to be in remote rural areas. We kind of had to communicate during the trip, and realize that, okay, well, let's split it this way, and for your preferences, this way for mine.
Mhm.
And we had a nice rhythm that way. So if you can't get everything hammered out in advance, definitely take that time to communicate during the trip. No angry texts at home to other people, but just communicate with the people you're traveling with, and that'll be really helpful.
I like that, yes. And doing those check-ins while on the trip, making sure everyone's good, we're on the same page. Ramona, thank you so much for these helpful tips, especially as so many of us are planning to travel for this summer. To our viewers, you can find out more by going to ramonamorgan.com.